I'll give you a little background before we get started so you can kind of context what I'm going to talk about today. I'm a fellow alumni here. I graduated from RPI in '77. I'm sure he was still a glint in his father's eye at that point, but walked off campus and one of very few people that went to work for a 3-person startup. And I worked for startups most of my life. Last count, I've been involved in 32 startups in my 41 years. Either as a CEO or as a VP or as an engineer or a consultant or some perturbation. I've been through them all. I've sold them, I've shut them down. I've got companies running on Z rounds of funding that will never go away. Currently, I'm a founder of another company. I have side gigs going. It's called Iron Ridge UAS. It's a drone company in Longmont, Colorado. We build airplanes for precision agriculture and surveillance. Also have a company in California that's called Pixelica, and if you're interested in Arduino, I think you might want to look at this one because it's a RISC-V implementation that's going to make Arduino and Raspberry Pi irrelevant.
What's the name of that?
Pixelica, P-I-X-I-L-I-C-A. We're on a second round of prototypes. These are going to be $49 credit card sized RISC-V boards. They have an FPGA on them. So you can modify the RISC-V core. The real beauty of this with RISC-V is everybody has an architectural license. Anybody can change that core, make it do whatever it wants. It's in an FPGA, you get the tools, it's $49. And if you email me, I'll send you one for free. Because we're going to have hundreds of these things coming on. The Indian Institute of Technology has already signed up to give every incoming engineer one of these boards. Okay? So it's going to be an educational kind of, same way Raspberry Pi and Arduino. The maker world goes crazy on here. So I'm involved in a lot of stuff. What I'm here to talk about tonight, when I gave this kind of a mini version of this down at NXP in our meetup in June, I think it was, or July, and David asked me to come up here, and I've expanded it, so this is a lot bigger of a deal. I want to go into some depth, but what I'm really here to talk about is why some people believe the Internet of Things is not living up to the expectations. There's several times in my life, there's not a whole lot of good things about getting old, but some things are. When one is experiencing the others, you've seen things a lot. The last time I saw something like this was the conversion from mainframe computing to desktop, portable, mobile, the transition from, in fact, when I went back to RPI this summer, I found out this has more transistors than was on the campus on my first day. Okay, that's how far we've gone in 40-some years. I used to carry boxes of cards and you do card punch. And you get a printout of a dot matrix printer, and that's how you computed on an engineering campus.
The other one I always use is this device has more computing power than the Apollo landing module.
That's the second one I use as well. And they have mechanical switches and they have touchpads and all kinds of things. But I thought I would start off with going back in time to when I walked off the campus and I went to work for Digital Equipment Corporation, and 90% of the people I talked to never heard of them. Okay, but back then there were 200,000 employees. They were the second largest computing company. They're based in Boston. And we made VAX computers. And the CEO of that at that time made a prediction. And it's probably one of the worst predictions ever. Nobody wants a computer in the home. IBM said, really? We're going to have the XT, and they beat the pants off him, and he went away. Okay, and yeah.
Didn't Bill Gates also make a horrible quote like that too?
Well, you see over on the right on this thing, it says Microsoft and Apple were startups, right? And Radio Shack was where you went if you needed a fix of electronics and computing. And you had a Trash 80, and that was computing at the time. But Bill Gates' prediction was nobody's going to want to write their own software. They're going to want to buy all the software, right? Same deal. So now we have people, everybody's got, last week at ArmTechCon, one of the speakers, Frank Schurmeister of Case, he said, I went home one night and I said, I wonder how many computers I have in the home, because I had told him about this quote. He's got 4 kids, and he said, I had over 110. Because he said, well, the garage door opener has a wireless, anything wireless has a computer in it. I mean, you can't be wireless without a computer. Your Apple Watch, all the way. You go through your house, the refrigerator, pretty soon you've got 100 computers in your house. problem that I'm going to talk about today is none of them are secure. I find everywhere I go, and one of the things my job affords me is, you know, I'm in a Google Waymo, I'm at Samsung, the IoT group, I'm at Amazon Web Services talking about free RTOS and the web service. I get exposed to a lot of companies, and one thing I can tell you is nobody cares about security. And that's my point about the Internet of Things. If we don't fix security, we're not going to live. And 40 years from now, you'll be up here talking and saying, one of the worst predictions I ever heard was from Dan when he told me the Internet of Things was a good thing, right? So the predictions are optimistic, yes. What did I do? I just disconnected the cord. Oh. That's the other thing about getting old. You get really clumsy. Here we go. I'll step back and not do this again. See, this comes up. There it is. So every analyst will tell you their prediction, and it's always some billion amount of devices by some date. You know, you can pick any one. This one is Ericsson. The reason I picked that is it's interesting that they break it out, and they still claim fixed phones in 2022 are going to be 1.23 billion. Well, I have a line at the fixed phone at home. I never use it. It's free with my internet service provider, so they can put that prediction up. And we just let all the phone calls we don't want to answer go to that line, and we all use our cell phones.
It's the hotmail phones.
It's the collector of all bad people calling. But like I said, one of the things you'll find is all the analysts have in common is it's a lot of devices and it's soon. I don't care if it's 20 billion by tomorrow or if it's 50 billion by next year, it's a lot. And that has a lot of interest in the world because it's a lot of money. And I know those are kind of hard to see, but what it shows in every one of these categories, the black is spending on Internet of Things compared to before the Internet of Things. It's a lot of money, and it's global. It's around the world. Every country has its own reason for the Internet of Things. The United States, interestingly enough, is focused right now on smart homes. Okay? In Europe, it's all about smart cities, because they have a lot of cities that are very old, a lot of old infrastructure, and they're looking at upgrading. In Asia, it's all about agriculture and food production. So everybody has their own interests, so it's a little bit hard to say this is what's most important, but it's safe to say here in the United States, smart homes is where most of the Internet of Things activity is going. So are these predictions realistic? Well, I personally think yes. I think they're very accurate. I think we're going to see the same kind of thing that we saw transitioning from big rooms of computers with dumb terminals on your desk. We saw that transition. Now I'm walking around with 2 computers and a little box on a battery. We're going to see the same kind of transitions going. One of the reasons I think that is because everything in your house now is a connected computer. For example, you're sitting in your kitchen and you look over it and you say, well, that's a refrigerator. And I say, no, that's a tablet that cools your food. Okay? And that's a computer that washes your clothes. And that's a computer that cooks your food. And I'm getting real lazy sitting on my butt watching TV while I'm controlling everything in my living room. They're everywhere. And that's where you get 110. If you go through your house and start counting up all the computers in your house, and you say if everybody has 100, and multiply it by the number of homes, well, that's where you get these big numbers from. They're real. And if we just did that, well, the problem is, and where the naysayers come in, some things just shouldn't be on the internet. I was at Home Depot, and I took this picture, and the sales guy's standing next to me, and he's like, what? And I said, who needs to control their water heater?
Hackers.
I said, I think, and I've lived in the same house for 34 years, I think I've touched the water heater twice, and most of those times are when it broke. And I just had to put a new one in. But it hibernates, it's energy efficient. What value has me on my phone controlling my water heater? And the sales guy looks at me because I started asking him, I'm like, well, are there default passwords in here? Is it encrypted data that's going back and forth? And he looks at me and goes, I'm a plumber. Sure enough, the Home Depot manager called me. Back, I left my business colleague, Carl, and he said, would you mind talking to like our buyers? Because they're putting this stuff in our stores I got electricians, I got carpenters, I got plumbers. I don't have a security expert. And I said, well, that's the problem, because that is an attack surface. Anything on the internet can be attacked. And one of the naysayers you're going to find is the chief scientist at McAfee. Great article in Bloomberg. He doesn't allow his kids to have anything on the internet. He says, why would I have a doorbell? Why would I have a water heater? My goodness, all it means is I got to worry about security. When I go shopping, I got to say, is this going to be somebody that can hack? And my wife was like, you back off. This is kind of just, I said, no. I raised children. I know that my 13-year-old son, if he knew he could turn the hot water off so when my daughter would take a shower, it was cold, he'd do it. Because that's what 13-year-old boys do now. They get on and they just, it's an insider threat, right? And I was like, no, I don't want him to be doing that. Now the doorbell, I pushed back on Raj, I know Raj, and I said, well, there is a value in here. If you notice, a lot of the Amazon thefts on the porch now, the video, so it's not the doorbell, it's the fact that there's a camera in the doorbell, right? Or the lady who dropped the baby off last week when you're arrested. How did they know I was there? Well, the doorbell had a video camera in it, and it was to my website. I use my video because when it rings, it goes to my phone. I say, hello, who's there? They don't know if I'm inside or I'm in Baby A's in Austin, right? And they go, oh, never mind, we're leaving. So for me, it's just a way of looking, and then I get their picture. So for me, it's a security, it's not a doorbell. But his point was, we have too many devices on the internet. And he's saying we need to stop. And I'm like, oh, that's the wrong message. What we need to do is fix it. We don't want to retard it, we want to fix it. And it's fixable. That's what I'm here to talk about. So, everywhere you go, I challenge guys, I go to these websites, the most secure this, and the most secure that. I was at Intel. Intel engineers are some of the best security people I know. And the guy looks at me and goes, Dan, what are you talking about? I've got TPM in every one of my chips. I'm like, that's cryptography. So you're encoding everything. Okay, what if that chip is in the Jeep Cherokee that on 60 Minutes they hacked and they drove it into a bridge? Your wife that night says, oh, it's great. All the data in that Jeep Cherokee was encrypted. Not my husband's dead, but I got encrypted data, right? It's not, encryption is not security. And so you gotta be very, very careful with people. If you ask people developing the Internet of Things, people that are building things that you're gonna buy, a Nest thermometer. I was at Nest. They're like, well, we would be glad to build security in. We don't know. Nobody tells us what it is. It's a lack of education. So I spend very little time selling. I do a lot of time educating. This is what it means to secure that. This is what it takes to bring that to market. The people that are buying IoT, they're number one when they were polled. Well, we're worried about security aspects. So nobody's buying because they know the people building don't know how to build it. If you don't know how to build it, I'm not buying that. And then in just a general audience, security always lives. More than half the people think the biggest issue with IoT is just security. And that's what led Mr. Netta to say, we're facing a cyber control harbor, and he's absolutely right. Let me give you an example. There's a very good book, a friend of ours, Bruce Schneier, just came out about a month ago. Click here to kill everybody. And yeah, the title's a little bit hyperbole, and he says it in there, but it gets your attention. And he's one of the best knowledgeable people I know. And he makes an example in here, and he was seeing my slides. He said, yeah, just imagine, just take a scenario. I go into a subdivision, and I start spreading the word, Bluetooth to Bluetooth, Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi. Pretty soon, I own your security camera, I own your television, I own your hot water heater, I own your washing machine. And at 3 in the morning, I turn them all up to max volume. You wake up and Austin has a brownout. Oh, that sucks. The traffic lights aren't working, I can't go to the office, my internet's down, my electric car isn't charged. Why would somebody do that? Well, terrorism is about losing money. if they can't defeat you, they want to cripple you, right? That's why we steal things over the internet. But the new terrorism is not going to be fought with bombs and missiles and wars. It's going to be in urban terrorism. In Paris, somebody found out how to put a piece of malware into the streetlights, and it passed itself along. In 2 days, they had 15,000 streetlights they controlled. And everybody said, well, why do they want to do that? And the point is, it's white hat people saying, look what I'm able to do. If I can do this, this is really, really bad. Okay, because same technology in the lights is in your door lock, it's in your doorbell, it's in your water heater now, everywhere. So there's this zest to put everything on the internet. We need to curtail that. If we're going to have the internet of things really survive, we need to be secure. And we're putting dumb stuff out there that we have to worry about security. That's our fault. So there's certain things we can do, which is not buy something stupid. Because the consequences are really bad. I don't know if you remember the Ukraine electric grid went down. And I put this up because that was 9 months in the making. 9 months Russia took to do this. First thing they did is put malware in every uninterruptible power source they could find in the electric company. So everybody thinks we're battery backed up, nobody's checking it, they turned it all off. On the day of the attack, they had a malware in every Windows-based computer in the electric company. The admins, the engineers, the field guys with their pads, and when they hit the button, they all bricked. The IT department was inundated. Hey, I can't get my computer to work again. So our IT department's all out looking at these, and behind it they went, goodbye power, bam. And they had to manually turn the power back on at every station, because the uninterruptible power supplies that ran the restoration were dead. There were no power. Russia said to them, you sure you don't want to be part of Russia? So this was a political act. Convince the country of UK, look what we were able to do to you. There are 2 dams in New York that have been hacked. Not Niagara Falls, but things that lead into the falls. And it was a message saying, we can control your water. Right? It's the proverbial shot over the bow. Mr. Trump, are you sure you want to treat us like that? Because we can grab a couple thousand dams in the United States and open them all up. And it's not such an issue now, but when I was here 3 years ago, visiting my friend here, Greg, he didn't have any water in Lake Travis. Right? Well, what if we just open all the dams all at once? Because we could. And that's what these things are proving. In-flight airplanes. Think about what this means. Somebody this summer was
Dan,
able...
you be careful, I'm getting on an airplane.
I know, I fly all every week. That's why I'm here talking. So what they did, essentially, was 3 years ago, they realized that the entertainment system under your United seat, that little black box, you ever try to get your backpack under there and that little damn boxes under there? Well, that's what's running your entertainment system. Okay? Well, that happened to be a processor that I had worked on. And a security consulting company called me and said, would you come be a consultant and tell us how to break into that processor? So what they ended up doing was they hadn't protected the JTAG port. You can see this, it's online, they have the video online. Guy sitting in row 27 CP's got a little GoPro camera on his shoulder, he's filming the whole thing. And with the JTAG port, if you keep hitting that reset, eventually it's a random occurrence of who becomes the master. The old JTAG. So as long as you get a bit of reset, eventually you're going to be the master. He became the master.
Yeah, that's also a felony. That's also a felony.
Well, it gets better. So he takes over the plane, turns it left, flies, lands in Abu Dhabi, gets arrested, and he asks him, if you leave the front door open and I walk in, is that a felony? No, it's not. Okay, and they released it. They hadn't secured their airplane. Well, 2 years later, he figured out how to buy a SATCOM box that the government uses, classified stuff, but you can get them on eBay. Just like there's leakers. This lady last week, they caught the lady leaving the Office of Management at the O&B office. She had the jump drive in her hand when they arrested her. There are people leaking classified stuff. Well, this person in Spain bought one of those and took over an airplane while it's flying over Canada from his laptop. That sounds fine. Well, how many Air Force jets were on that same satellite that he could have turned all their engines off immediately? The answer is quite a bit. And what have we done about it? What did Boeing do? Well, I read a few weeks after that occurrence, we are training all of our pilots on how to handle cyber attacks. So instead of fixing it, which is a lot of money, because it's every one of those computers, we're going to fix, so somebody, memes are great, right? Somebody posted a meme with a guy with his pants down, grabbing his ankle and said, that's the only training they need because we control the airplane. There's nothing he can do but jump out of the airplane. It's ours. And that doesn't seem to worry a lot of people except people that fly 2 million miles in their lives, and that scares the hell out of them. It's fixable. What about the port of LA? Shut down. 76 ports were inoperable. It was a virus because they were running Windows 97. Oh, beautiful. Well, we didn't think anybody would ever. Why did they do that? You know all those iPhones on that boat? They couldn't make it to port. It's money. It's a financial terrorism. Hurt companies. Then you go back to them and say, you don't want that to happen again. Amy, ransomware. The Jeep. This is on 60 Minutes. You can go to 60 Minutes website and watch the car behind him. This is in Ladue. I'm from St. Louis. The two people in the car behind, the guy's driving it, and he's finally getting really freaked out because now the steering wheel's not working. He's like, no, this is dangerous. And that's exactly right. It's not just about encrypting data. It's about operational safety. It's about privacy, not letting somebody into the controls of my, whatever my thing is. Well, a car's a thing. And the Internet of Things, a car's a thing because it's being autonomous, running off the Internet. One of my more favorite ones, casino in Las Vegas. The MIT guy said, hey, it's a $79 wireless thermometer. I don't have to go down and take the readings. I can just have it. This is going to be great. Stuck it in the fish tank. 2 days later, all of the information of their highest valued clients were stolen. Got into their high value data through a fish tank thermometer. $79. So this isn't, oh, well, it's just a thermometer. No, anything on the internet is an attack surface for these people. And it's easy. It's a couple $100 to do that. We all know about Point of Sale. That was the heating and air conditioning company that led them into the, and this one. So this was, everybody know what DDoS, a distributed denial of service. They hijacked refrigerators, security cameras, and all at once they hit the BYN site. Well, that happens to be the domain server for Facebook and Twitter.
Was that the one that took out S3
Yes.
that whole day?
Yes.
Yeah.
I get a panic call from my 18-year-old daughter. Dad, what's wrong with Facebook? Nothing worse to an 18-year-old daughter in high school than losing Facebook. It was like, well, we're going to war and all these other, we're in like a recession. I don't have Facebook, Dad. This is terrible. So that's those $29 security cameras. When you're a consumer, think, why is this camera so cheap? It's because a person doesn't want to sell you to make money on the camera. They're taking over and they're attacking. My neighbors, they got a break-in in somebody's car, and 4 of the people on our block all were out there, and they were trading all this info, and I'm just watching. And they're all buying these Netgear things, and they're only $209, and I ordered 3, and you want one coming? And I, of course, as a consumer, always punch in when I'm buying something. It's an easy Google search. Netgear, and I immediately told them all those things. They had like 9 vulnerabilities, and they've been used in the botnet attacks, and why would you do that? 2 days later, the neighbor comes over, he's like, my internet won't work. Well, it's because the camera has taken over your internet and sent an email, and it's a spammer. And that's why they sold it to you for that money. We got to be better consumers. We have to say, no, something's wrong. If somebody sells you a Mercedes for $400, you got to say, that ain't right. Right? I mean, it can't make a camera for $29. This one, I was coming back from the Czech Republic, and there's not a whole lot to do, so you watch TV that I never watched, right? And I'm watching a Homeland version from 2015. The Russians assassinated the vice president by hacking his pacemaker, turning up his pulse. So, oh, it's fiction, but it was really well done, and they just watched him have a heart attack and die. Interesting, 2 weeks later, Dick Cheney got a new pacemaker. Truth safety. My neighbor works for Bishop Fox, which is a security consulting company. Got to be over for a social event. I was telling him about that episode. He went out and bought 3 of them. 2 days later, he had control of the pacemakers. 765,000 people had to get their pacemakers updated. They didn't have to have them removed because they were smart enough to have over-the-air upgrade to the firmware. That was how they hacked them. They didn't encrypt it. They did. I mean, it was just crazy. But this is not somebody lost my credit card. This isn't somebody got my social security number and opened a credit card, and that's a problem. This is somebody who could kill you. Who would want to do that? I read a lot of news websites, and I'm always reading about the crazy ex-spouse who hired somebody to go kill somebody. Right there, that's a whole lot easier. Just give the old man a heart attack. How to do that? Up goes the pulse. These things, you can imagine you're allowing somebody to put something in your body that's going to kill you, and it's not secure. And when I talk to Medtronic, when I talk to Abbott, they're like, whoa, geez, Dan, that'd be great to be secure, but you know, that's going to reduce our battery life by 4%, and that's how we compete. We compete on cost and battery life. So you're telling me...
Not being alive.
So I said to him, you're telling me the customer that you tell him this pacemaker is $40 more, but it won't kill you, and he's going to buy the other one? Are you crazy? You have the opportunity to be the only safe pacemaker on the planet, and you're saying no thank you, because, well, it's all about battery life. Well, it's not. It's about killing the person. And there's 750,000 people walking around, and when I tell people this, I had actually one of the meetups in California gave the same kind of speech. I get an email back saying, I notified my dad after your talk, and he went and got his pacemaker updated. Thank you. We don't even know they're insecure. Nobody tells us they're insecure. So if you think it's pretty creepy what I'm talking about, it's absolutely as bad as you think. You just, ignorance is bliss. So that's what I'm doing. I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Sir, great examples of the bad side. Can you give me an example of the good side of a cybersecurity attack which happened recently?
Good
Very
attack.
recently. Which was
Good
good.
attack. I can tell you about people that have done good things to secure things.
Like the microchip?
Like,
The microchip?
no, I was going to point to XP down the road at Oak Hill. Okay, their IMX processors are the only processors available that I would say it's a secure processor that nobody could hack. I would put my reputation, everything I own, and say, if anybody can hack that thing, yeah, via network-based attacks, the typical kinds of stuff. I'm sure there's a way you could take off the layers of the chip and deconstruct it, but you have to be in the NSA or some part of some CIA organization. You have to have $10 million of equipment. I'm talking about just regular hacks. NXP is a great example, and it's here in Austin.
What I'm talking about is country X was very close to getting nuclear power. Country Y actually sent
The
the virus,
Stuxnet?
and they basically sped up their centrifuges all the way up.
And that's why Dover Microsystems is here, interestingly enough. When that happened, so this is Stuxnet virus,
Yeah.
where Israel and the United States, literally, it was an Allen Bradley PLC.
Yes.
It was an engineer that walked in, plugged in the thing, and it spread throughout, and I think it was about 35% of their centrifuges
Yes, exactly.
exploded. You just speed them up and move. And you say, well, that's good. That's an example of keeping something bad from happening. The problem is they left the stick there. So Iran got the same thing, and DARPA immediately was funded to go make sure that could never happen to us, because they now have, it's like, there was also a fighter jet that collided with a Chinese jet and had to make emergency landing in China. The people on board, as they were landing, were pouring coffee into disk drives. They were smashing things with hammers because they knew we don't have permission to land, they're gonna take this and they're gonna take apart everything in our most modern spy jet. So that was an example of, there were kill switches in a lot of the electronics that they were able to, basically, they bricked a lot of the devices. They still had the hardware, but all the software was erased and everything stopped working when they hit the ground. So literally, they didn't deboard the airplane until they had tried to destroy it as much as possible. So it goes both ways, and there are times when, you know, in defense of the country, you might have a good example. What I'm talking about here is the average consumer walking around with a pacemaker, driving a Jeep, flying on an airplane. These are just normal. These aren't countries trying to battle each other. These are just, wow, this is real. And I'm afraid it gets worse. The super micro. Okay, so everybody on the planet, Tim Cook, is demanding that this be withdrawn. Amazon Web Services, no way, no way, no way. That chip has a Bluetooth radio in it, has memory and a processor. Yes, sir.
I read the article, I kind of disagree that this is smart chip. This chip is only 6-pin interface.
Yep.
And then if it can, from the size, if it has processing power, memory, I doubt it. And the only way I think it can connect the interface is SPI. It only has 6 pins.
It's a whole one line low and a Pixie boost.
It's a wireless device.
It pulled one line low and a Pixie boost. And they had a different piece of compromise.
It's using-
All they had to do was pull one, it wasn't a digital hack, it was analog. They pulled the one line low and Pixie boost.
And also the NSA and also the Homeland Security also denies it.
Of course. You know, panic would go on in the world if they didn't deny it. Think about the political problem if we said, yeah, it was a problem, we knew about it, and we didn't want to do it. The chip actually is being implanted in a USB connector.
It was in the AMP catalog in 2015, it's in the Ethernet. The NSA has it themselves.
Right. The
There's
USB,
another report saying that it's not from the BMC chip, the SPI interface is from the Ethernet connector. It's another report.
Ethernet, USB, but if they're using Bluetooth Low Energy, actually, they don't broadcast this very far. It's actually employees that are collecting the data and selling the data. They've already arrested 2 employees in the data centers whose job was to bring that home every night, plug it in, and transmit the data. So it's not a big, powerful radio, but USB has power in that connector. That's what makes that so available. Is all I got to do is start broadcasting a 6 to 10 foot BLE. He's got his recorder. He gets that data. These guys reported when they were arrested that they were making over 7 digits a year in income collecting data.
Well, that was ridiculous because they should have just hacked their phones and sent it up via Expo.
That would have been easy.
Yeah, and their footprint.
But this started 15 years ago. Okay. Whether it's true or not, it's an opinion. I'm giving you my opinion because I run around with these people and I've seen the connectors where these chips have been mounted. And I've seen where they've shown the communications back saying, well, we substituted this part because it was a little bit cheaper and it's on the approved vendor list, so we're using this connector. I hope that's okay. Well, what manufacturing guy is on the approved list? Okay, put it in there. That's how they get them in. Okay. But there's a lot of reason for people. Tim Cook is the most, head of Apple. I know Tim, and he's adamant that this will be a big problem if the public believes it to be true.
Part of the war on the media, too.
Yep. Second one, U.S. weapons. It took 9 seconds to break the password on the most modern jet in our fleet. We took over the command module of the most modern Air Force fighter. Okay. This is a mock-up of what it looks like, but the reason I put it up there is look at all the places that you could get in. Yes, there's probably 100 or so processors in that guy. There's a ton of software. Here's a good data point for you. I like this because why do they need a Ford F-150? It's because there's 150 million lines of code in that truck. And they have a goal of getting it down to 50 million. Well, anybody who does software, I use this all the time because I'm a hardware guy. All software has bugs. I'm sorry, they just do. And there's people that predict that there's a bug for every 1,000 lines of code. So do that math, 150 million lines. Look how many bugs are in your truck. That's kind of scares the crap out of me. I'm like, what is all that software doing? Well, if you get into the engine control unit, you get into the climate control in the cabin, you get in the entertainment system. There's 4 processors in the entertainment system. They've all got software. Brake control. One of my favorites lately, Audi. Everybody's trying to go wireless in automobiles to eliminate weight from cables. Where Greg and I work, we use logic synthesis. They reduce the cable length of fire trucks by 11% by using synthesis tools that wire chips. And they said, oh, we could optimize point-to-point wiring, and then all that cable's gone, we're gonna get better gas mileage. So Audi, with all its infinite wisdom, took their tire pressure monitor and made it wireless. Which means when I pull up next to you in the car, I can take over your car, and I can report that tire has actually got 2 pounds of air. Oh my God, I gotta pull over, and well, it looks fine, why did it do that? And people are like, but Dan, why do people do that? I'm like, have you ever been in England and heard the word hoodlums? I was once at a train station 7 years ago, and minding my own business, somebody came up and just pushed me down the steps. They had just been to a football match, and they were drunk, and they were just hoodlums. There was a gal in New York City, a 70-year-old woman, got pushed into the subway tracks. Why? It's just what people do. They don't know why they do it. Why did we throw eggs at houses on Halloween? Why did we TP my neighbor's trees? Why do we do things? Again, if you're going to leave that thing open, somebody's just going to do it because they can, and it's fun to watch. Somebody worry about their car. Do we need a wireless tire pressure monitor? Is that really a good thing? And if it is, can't you encrypt it? And they go, oh, well, that encryption, that's going to be more battery life. We're going to reduce our batteries. So instead of being secure, we're worried about the consumer and battery. That's our problem. We should be not buying that Audi until they fix that security problem. That's the way I look at life.
Yeah, Dan, in the 90s, I was a mechanical designer, and there's a similar principle that I discovered. If you leave an opening big enough for somebody to put a finger in, somebody's going to lose a finger.
Exactly. It's going to happen.
It's just the way it works.
So the largest semiconductor manufacturing company in the world, not Samsung, TSMC, you probably know about this. Boom. The people that supply most of the silicon to Apple, factories shut down. What? Was that an employee did that? No. They got a message like everybody else. Pay us and we'll unencrypt all of your equipment. This is all the implant machines, all the etch machine. Their whole fab is down. They reported they lost $171 million in revenue for being down. I think it was 3 or 4 days.
Was this the one where they didn't have any firewalls or VLANs or anything, even the most basic?
Sir, it's much better than that. They were running Windows 7 that hadn't been patched in 9 years.
Oh, it was very embarrassing. They didn't have this thing.
9 years, we haven't patched our software. And I'm sitting there talking to these people going, really? Really? You're the largest, most advanced, most technically competent semiconductor manufacturer in the world, and you haven't patched Windows 9. Well, you might not even be using, you shouldn't even be using Windows. Windows 7, I'm sorry. That's a 9-year-old operating system. But people you will find, Greg and I were talking about this earlier, once it works, leave it, don't touch it. I know the Samsung guys don't do that because you're an alumni. But that's indicative of the manufacturing process. It's all, once it works, don't change it. Oh, unless somebody comes in, and notice this number, this is a quote out of, I think, Forbes, 250 million, but they reported 171, so that means $79 million ransom was paid. $79 million to get, so that we can ship iPhones by Christmas. This happened just at the right time. Bad people know how to make big money. They know exactly when to hit you. They know exactly how to make money. It's just ridiculous.
At my last job, they application had like 100,000 lines of code, and it was written in PHP, and the version of PHP that they were using reached end of life like 5 years ago.
Happens all the time. It's crazy.
And it's the exact same thing, you know, every once in a while we would tell them, it's like, hey, you know, you really should bring this up to date. Hey, no, don't touch it, it works.
I'm talking to the TSCMC guys, and I'm like, hey, when you go to the bank, is the vault just open and there's no security at all because, it's just money, it's just laying around, we don't need to pay. I mean, that costs a lot to put a big door on it, and put bars in the windows and cameras. I said, that's what you did. You just said, come on in, grab our money. It's so sad. Think about how much it would have cost to upgrade those operating systems. Let's be generous, $5 million. They lost 250. Okay, but these are happening like now. This isn't 10 years ago. This was a couple, 3-4 weeks ago. This is like, boom. I read this and I'm like, really? How in the world are we doing this? So let's talk about what is security then? Because again, I talked to some of the best engineers on the planet and they go, we're encrypting data, that's secure. That's all we need to do, right? Protection against anything bad. It's not just stealing my data. There is a lot of stealing of data. And it can be deliberate. We talk about terrorism, we talk about thieves, we talk about another story I've heard, there's 2 people that manufacture bicycles in Asia. And they actually share a parking lot. Right? Their employees come in. One guy in the one building found a way to get into the sensor that's measuring the temperature on the welding machine. He flipped it from centigrade to Fahrenheit. Boom! Bikes coming off the assembly line just falling apart because all the welds were wrong. It was like, imagine just bikes just... The plant, if you've ever been to any of these plants, they're mostly black. They have a few red lights because there's no employees. These are all robots and these are all, I mean, when a light goes on, management gets notified because that means something's wrong. So these things are just flying off, nobody's even noticing, poof, fall apart. That's the kind of terrorism, business enemies. But it can also be equipment failures. You can have something go wrong and it's no longer secure. We talk about 2 kinds of security: information security and operational security. Okay? Information security is all about privacy. It's nobody can get my credit card data, nobody can get my HIPAA data out of my medical equipment. So it's protecting the information, ensuring privacy. The other side of operational is saying, I'm not going to let your pacemaker kill you. I'm going to put something in there that says if you've got a pulse, it's not going to fire the defect. That's easy enough. That's security. That's safety. That's saying I'm not going to let somebody take over my brakes while my car's moving. These people design chips. This is 2 lines of heroin, right? Security itself is about everything. Mostly when people talk about security, they're talking about network-based attacks. Right? They're talking about getting them through wireless, some kind of a network-based attack. But you put those together and you end up with trust. And that's what really security is. Okay? I use the example, you walk into Target, you're going to buy a toaster. And I'm thinking, you're probably not standing there going, if I plug that into my house, is it going to take down my power in my house? No, because we have underwriter labs, right? We know that those little stickers mean that the iron is okay to plug in. We as a society never question if this power cord is going to have a problem. That's what underwriter labs did. Guess what underwriter labs is going to do next? They're going to have the same sticker on a thing that says, no, this doesn't have a default password that somebody can use. No, this isn't using clear text, it's encrypted. No, it's not. It's got authentication. It knows how to verify who's on the other end of the internet when they're talking to me. There is going to be an underwriter labs for the Internet of Things. There has to be. Because we as consumers aren't good about that. So the type of attacks, I said network-based attacks. MITRE keeps a website and they keep all the current attacks. They clump them into stuff. By and far, the largest buffer errors. What we mean by buffer errors is a very simple way. If you've got a 16-bit register I'm gonna write 32 bits out there, you're gonna store 16, and my other 16, you're not even gonna know where they went, because they flew past what you thought was the buffer. The compilers throw all that information away. If a good compiler would say, no, you're trying to write 32 into 16, I'm not gonna let that. But software engineers, that slows them down. We gotta get the software out. Who cares about those other 16? Well, hackers care. And that's how they can find out information. And the meltdown inspector, again, that's them forcing something to happen so that then they can extract reality or reaction of the device. Buffer overflow errors are by and far the number one. But then you have other things, code injection. Zigbee has a very widely known protocol problem that it's very easy to inject your code into the device through the Zigbee interface. Some of the others, crypto errors, numeric errors, some, but we mostly think about the buffer overflow. Physical attacks, okay, sometimes called side channel attacks, I'm not sure why. But these are literally people that, I have a friend works for the Navy, and when they try to figure out the electronics from our non-friends, they use things like electromagnetic radiation. They can make the device do something, and they can measure the change in the amount, because every wire on a chip is an antenna. Right? Think of it. All those wires, they're all antennas, and if you can measure accurately enough, they also can inject stuff. They can force a reset with an electronic beam microscope, and then watch what happens. And that's your reset line. So now I can draw a schematic, because every time I do that, I see this, oh, there's reset, oh, let's do clock, oh, there's the clock. So now all of a sudden I can, if I want to, for as long as I am willing to invest in it, I can build a net list of the chip that you have. So people will take the passivation layers off, they'll reduce down, they'll take pictures, there's software then that builds that into a diagram of a schematic. And you can meticulously do that, and that's what people do. You do it now in printed circuit boards. That's what they're talking about with the supermicro problem. They're saying, well, whoever, when you're designing a board, whoever compares the post-manufacturing net list to the net list we sent them to build. Same in silicon, right? I mean, we build wires and connectors in our silicon, we send it to Samsung and TSMC and Intel, and they send us chips back. Is there anything extra put in that design? Did anybody ever check that what we got back was a little bit different than what we sent? The answer is hell no, that's really hard. Yeah, I know it's really hard. There's a lot of things, being married for 34 years is really hard. I did it, right? We're gonna have to do that, because otherwise you're gonna have a Trojan in your design. Somebody's gonna have added a little extra something. There are ways now of camouflaging. People put wires and transistors in their designs just to cover it up so people get confused. It doesn't stop them, it slows them down. It's a speed bump in the parking lot. They're still going to leave the parking lot, it's just a little slower. It's just a way of slowing down the badness. The distributed denials of service, basically taking the time to all the computers, the processors everywhere in your house, everywhere around town, and at the right time, we all hit the victim. Who could that victim be? Well, with Amazon right now, and you think about if we took down one Amazon headquarters for 1 hour, just do the math, how much they make every year divided by the number of hours, and you realize that's a whole lot of money. Why would I want to do that? I don't know, I might be a disgruntled UPS employee that got fired because now Amazon's taking over delivery as well. I know a guy who, when he got laid off at a bank, encrypted the entire bank's database because he was pissed. Why am I getting laid off? Turns out it was my brother. I know this for a fact. I had to explain to my mother when she's crying that her son's in jail and she didn't understand. I'm like, he was pissed, he got laid off, so he blah, blah, blah. Nah. It wasn't very hard for them to figure that out. FBI's knocking on his door. He lives in Boulder, he's calling me. I'm like, dude, you think I was pissed? Angry people do bad things. We let them.
Well, the average cost of those EDOSs is like $100 or something. It's nothing.
It's nothing. Man in the middle. You ever get something when you're on a web page or something comes up? I knew a lady who was the executive vice president of a major bank who thought, well, this guy in Indonesia wants to wire me $5 million. That's pretty cool. And she clicked. It was my sister. I knew this. But man in the middle is basically trying to tell you you're talking to who you think you're talking to, but you're not. You're talking to them, and then they're talking to who you thought, and they're just taking all that data. It could be your credit card while you're ordering something on Amazon. It could be your grades when you were in school. I tell people, I said, you know, my wife's a nurse, and I'm very cognizant of HIPAA data. But you walk down a hall of a hospital, unfortunately I was in a car accident, spent a lot of time in the hospital, and all I did is look around and go, it's all my HIPAA data, it's not encrypted. Somebody walking by, what? Why would they, and everybody's looking at me, why would they want to do that? And I'm like, well see, a drunk driver hit me, and my insurance company is really not happy about how much money they're going to have to really collect and pay me for this. My medical expenses were lots. So they want to collect something that says, oh, no. See, we got your data, and we realized that you didn't have a fever on that day, so that $7 for Advil we're not going to approve. And the insurance companies are debt collectors, right? Just like the IRS, they don't sell, they don't do anything, they just collect. And so they collect all that data to do bad things.
Well, there's some significant laws against doing that, so.
If they get caught. There's significant laws for you driving home doing 5 miles an hour with a speed limit, but I bet you do it and you don't get expected to get caught. That's what the hackers, and the more we are not secure, the more money they make, the bolder they get, unless they worry about it. Phishing, that's the one thing that we can't fix is people doing stupid things. When somebody puts something up and they're asking for your data, don't give it to them. I mean, you know, banks don't send you an audit saying, we're just updating our records, what's your social security number? They just don't do that. I mean, it's just common sense. So phishing is one of those that I'm like, people are going to do that. Ransomware, again, this is people doing stuff they shouldn't. Clicking on links they know they shouldn't click on. It's better to be abundance of caution, as all the politicians are saying. Don't click on something. I mean, Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Investigation, that looks really official. You can copy that off the website. Yeah. I like in here, if you look, there's several language errors. I can't find it there, but if you read through that.
All your bases are belong to us.
Well, and it said loose instead of lose. And I was like, okay. No, I don't think the FBI they'd probably spell check, interesting, grammar check, before they actually did that. That I can't help you with. If people do this, we're always going to be in trouble. So why is there a lack of security? Well, every hardware engineer I walk into and I talk to, they go, no, that's a software problem. Go talk to the software engineer. The guy who made the decision in NXP to put hardware into their MCUs was the VP of software engineering. That's the guy who said, no, this is not a software. They're wrong. This isn't my problem. It's their problem. And then you talk to the software engineer, and the first thing he says is, oh, we just add software. We got McAfee, we got spam filters, we got all kinds. We got ARM Trust Zone. Oh, yeah, we got software. And I look at him and I go, really? 90% of the vulnerabilities come through software. So to make something more secure, you're adding more software. Brilliant. And then you go through it, and these are just quick Google searches. You know, anybody with a Qualcomm processor and an Android phone, you might as well just, you know, that commercial on TV, the guy throws his wallet into the water. It's just like that. It's not secure. And you can't tell people you don't have bugs. Marketing doesn't eliminate bugs just because they say they're secure and they have no bugs. One of my favorite clocks came out last October. Somebody wrote, this actually takes the trust out of trust zone. So software engineers are wrong, right? Adding more software just makes your product more insecure. It just gives, it might slow people down. They've got to find layers of bugs, and hardware engineers are wrong. It is their responsibility. Larry Ellison at Oracle last year came out and said, nope, I'm the CTO of Oracle. We secure the hardware. No more nonsense, no more software. And I about jumped up and started applauding, and you know, 10 people, it would have looked really stupid, so I stayed. I said,
You remember when Oracle advertised that they were unbreakable?
yeah, they came, unbreakable and unhackable.
Yeah.
You know, it's the Spark computer, the processor group, which I knew a lot of people that came out of a lot of the tech guys. And
The old quote, if you really care about software, you design your own hardware.
yeah, of course. So that's one of the reasons why we're not secure. I go in a lot of these companies, NXP, I went in there to talk to them. I met them at the RISC-V workshop. They're an ARM-based company, everybody knows the processor. And I'm sitting there talking to Rob O'Shawn, and he's like, this is great, this is great. And he says, you know, if you'd have come in and talked to a hardware engineer, they'd have blown you off. He says, because I own the software, the security problem at NXP. Well, what he's done now is moved that all over to the hardware group. So I believe NXP has the most secure processors because they've come to understand that's wrong. But things are changing, okay? It's gonna change when we as consumers start being smarter consumers, right? Right now, if you walked in to buy a phone, I'm thinking you're thinking, well, that's 570, that's 410, the new iPhone, $1,000. Is it available? What's the look and feel? Those are what you buy, right? Those are the buying behaviors you have today. Washing machines, refrigerators. I don't think I know anybody that walked in and looked at a washing machine and asked about what kind of security is embedded in this controller. I just don't think anybody does that. But the people building the processors, right, they listen to the buyer. And they go, iPhone. I want 4 processors running at 2 gigahertz. I don't want one processor at 2.6. It's all about make the chips faster, 7 nanometers, 5 nanometers. I'm talking to a gentleman who works in the manufacturing group of Samsung, right? So it's all, well, you know what? I think there's 20 people on the planet that need 7 nanometers today. There's probably 20 companies that really think like that. There's not 20,000, there's not 400 million. There's 3. I was wrong, I was too optimistic. There might be 3. So they also worry about power, right? I hear this all the time. Medical equipment, cell phones, it's all about battery life. Battery life, how do we, well, the Android software hasn't done anything to reduce power, but they all put it on the freaking hardware guy, right? But it's all about low power, low power. I mean, the people who build the design tools went through this big thing for low power and clock dating back 10, 15 years ago. That's because the consumer wanted longer battery life. Area, when I talk about area, I mean a couple things. Area of chip is really cost. So we work to make as small a chip as we can, but it also affects the look and feel and the usability, right? I mean, I don't want to carry, I bought my wife for Christmas one of the big iPads that came out. My son came up and he's like, holds it up to his ear, he's like, Mom, that's a hell of a phone. And I'm like, yeah, see, so there's a lot of reasons to keep things small. But if we don't start asking about security, the people who build things will never build it. They only build what you and your wallet pay for, right? Autonomous cars are one of the very few things that I think are being built to most people's objection. I have so many friends that are like, I hope that never happens because I like to drive. I got my Mustang, I got my this, I got my that. I like to drive. And I'm like, But, the insurance companies don't like it when you drive like that and you run into the back of the truck. They just don't like that. It costs them a lot of money. And you know what? I have a personal thing on how people merge on the highways. It absolutely drives me nuts. And y'all here down in Texas with your frontage roads, this is the worst possible merging situation ever. I was driving down I-35, my son lives in Kyle, and sure enough, this gal was getting down to 20 miles an hour because she's getting ready to exit up the road and everything behind her is just, my friend's telling me a story about his grandmother in New York City, and she comes home and she's like, I don't know what's going on. I look in my rearview mirror and all these cars and everything's it's like a mess. Well, it's because you're changing lanes at 10 miles an hour. And my point is, the consumer has a lot of power here. If we start saying, no, I'm not letting you put a hot water heater in my house that's unencrypted data. That's a little baby step, right? Every journey starts with the first step. So everybody I talk to is, please, when you go to buy your next phone, ask them about the Qualcomm processor. Because you're standing there on your old phone, and it's a quick Google search to show the sales guy, holy crap, 650,000 of that particular brand that uses Qualcomm were hacked. Why were they hacking? Because they were trying to get cryptocurrencies because you're running the wallet on your phone. Blockchains. Blockchain's another great example. Oh, inherently secure. They're inherently secure. Well, it's only secure if you don't let somebody take over 51% of the nodes. It's called a 51% hack. And it happened in Korea. Somebody put some malware into one device and passed it all around. Pretty soon they had 51%. They said, let's transfer all the money. The votes went through. 51, money went out. They let go. 3 seconds, they got $32 million.
It actually happens almost every day. There's a website that tracks it in real time. It's pretty funny.
It is pretty funny.
Yeah.
And the press only prints 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Because most of them are trading cryptocurrencies.
Yes.
It's all about money, right? So the advice when I hang around with the security people, they're telling people now, and it's a good thing, right? I mean, in big companies, they're doing big education on what they call wetware. I don't know if you heard the term wetware. That's stupid people doing stupid things, like clicking on stuff they know that the Ethiopia prince doesn't just randomly send you $5 million. Right? I mean, I'm sorry, did you get the $5 million? That's why you're here, right? Yeah, you'll get the confirmation soon that your bank account was shut down. Okay, the second thing that's going to change all this is government regulations. Okay, unfortunately, the guy who wrote this book, that's one of his main points in the book, and it's already started. You know, GDPR in Europe. Here in the U.S., we have the CCPA in California. Vermont's passed one. Basically, we're taking baby steps by government. This is, again, part of that underwriter labs kind of thing, where eventually we're going to put, this one is really very interesting. I challenge anybody to look at U.S. politics and find any bipartisan action where people actually are doing something productive together. Right? We're at war in politics. But here is on the left, Cory Gardner, which is a very conservative Republican senator from my home state of Colorado, teamed up with Mark Warner, a very liberal Democrat from Virginia, and they passed a bill that said the U.S. government will not buy anything that's not secure on the internet. And, you know, people looked at me like, so what? And I went, well, Western Digital, 30% of the disk drives they sell are to the federal government. Yeah. And Martin Finks from Fort Collins, a CSU grad like myself, he's like, bam. And immediately, he's my customer. 30% of his revenue. You think about all the stuff the government builds. This bill, well, for example, FPGAs, they buy $550 billion worth of that stuff. Over the lifetime of the FPGA purchases, that's their cumulative amount of money they're buying. So this was the Cybersecurity Improvement Act of 2017. Passed, got minimum things. You can't buy a security camera if there's a default password in there that the manufacturer can get. Simple. Just pass a damn bill. It's not that hard. Eventually, we're going to get to where you're going to have underwriter labs. You're going to have a thing on there on anything that plugs into the internet that says, you know, when we had trains, we had government agencies. When we had radios, we had radio, FTC. When we have aviation, we have the FAA. We're going to have somebody, whether it's the government or somebody hired by the government, but we're going to have regulations. And that's the best news possible. I know I'm not a big fan of big government. I'm not a fan of politics. This is one thing that makes me happy. And that's why I always tell people about it. Damn, Republican and Democrat can do something positive together, and they can sit at the same table without saying they look like a horse, or, you know, and it's just...
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's amazing. It's just a wonderful thing. We should all feel good about it. So how do you... So I don't know how technical people are. I'm going to run through this at kind of a high level, but the answer is it's very easy to secure your silicon. The chips that are running your processors, it's not hard. But what a security threat model is part of the product requirements document. It's a specification for security. It says, These are the things that people might want to steal. Okay, these are the registers that contain valuable data. They must be somehow designed for security that that data can never be stolen. Software agencies have this for a long time. In fact, there's an acronym called STRIDE. It's spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and elevation of privilege. Over here on the right is a banking app that I got from a friend. He said this was our security threat model.
Is that better? We got hacked.
No,
Yeah.
a bot.
IoT.
Let's see, somebody hacked me. They don't like what I'm saying. Can you hear me now?
No.
Better? Well, it might be the battery or the lights
You
on.
got lights on that one, right?
Maybe it needs to I'll talk loud until you get that fixed. But what you can see on here is like steal data from the RAM, steal login credentials, command injection. That would be, they put instruction in that I didn't want them. And each one of those shows how they're, what it is, phishing, malware. They list them all. That's a really healthy thing to do. That's what I call security hygiene. It's like brushing your teeth and using deodorant. You don't want to stink, right? You need to do this. You need to look at your device and say, I'm building such and such medical equipment. It's going into these kinds of clinics, blah, blah, blah. What would somebody try to do? You build a spec, right? You can't measure what you can't manage. You can't design what you can't dictate.
It's a lack of critical thinking. They're rushing to profits. That's all they care about.
Well, that's the point. And rushing to profit stops when the consumer says, no, thank you. That's what I'm saying. Buying behavior stops that from being, well, let's face it, most companies are greedy capitalist pigs, right? All we really care about is stock market, stock prices, bonuses, salaries, benefits. We're all about money. Well, that's the only thing we can.
Money makes the world go round.
I'm on. So
Juggling's dead.
So my point is, when I'm starting to see now, Intel's one of them, where every project, every chip design they have, first thing they do is write the security threat model. It's the spec of what we're going to have to protect. Because as I go through and design it and architect it, I'm going to have to prove to somebody that they can't steal data from that register. They can't do that. And what's that called? Well, that's called design for security. We have design for test, design for manufacturing, we have all these design fors. Design for reliability, design for this. We have design for manufacturability, where PDF Solutions takes masks and they come back and they make their money by, we modified your mask to increase yield and you're going to pay us half of the yield improvement. That's called gain share. This is 20 years ago when masks were still, it's not your generation, it's mine, so it's a different example. But we have a company now, it's called Tortuga Logic. Tortuga Logic down in San Diego, spin out of San Diego State University. They have basically the same kind of formal verification you would make for functionality. I can formally prove a design is correct. It's called formal verification. You simulate to try and prove a formal simulation is mathematically saying, yes, that could never happen. Well, this is exactly what happened with the Intel processors with Meltdown and Spectre. They didn't know that that was in there. They didn't verify it. So these tools are available, and I'm sitting there going, why wouldn't every design team have that tool? Right? You have the tools for designing the chip, tool for verifying the chip. Why don't we have a tool for...
There's money.
Yeah. Again, the buying behavior.
Linked to EDAs? Are they integrated into the EDAs like Synopsys here?
Yeah, they're an electronic design automation company. Tortuga means turtle, so it's hard shell logic. That's why they name themselves. Jason Oberg's the CEO. We're happy to introduce you guys. They're a great company. Xilinx is using them in all their tools now. They're making headways into Los Alamos. I'm like, Los Alamos is a place I want to make sure is secure. That's where a lot of our nuclear stuff comes out of. So the second thing you need is what's called a physically unclonable function. And what it is serial number, or it's a fingerprint. I ought to be able to tell you that the piece of silicon in your phone was designed with these tools of that group, manufactured by those people, shipped to this place, assembled on the board.
Full provenance.
Full provenance, and I do that with a fingerprint, just like we do when we get arrested and we give them our fingerprint. It's identity. It's who is this person? And the way that works is, if you look on the left, they mostly use static RAM cell. This is a schematic of a RAM cell. Turns out the variation across a chip, across a wafer, everything changes a little bit. The effective length of the channel of the transistor, the capacitance of a wire, the resistance of a polylayer, it's slightly different. And everybody then has a unique physical characteristic of every chip on every wafer. And if I apply a stimulus to that, I'll get a unique answer back from it. So when you're designing, for example, the simulators have this X, which is unknown. And when we turn on a memory, we just assume we don't know if it came up a 1 or a 0. We know it's one or the other, we just don't know which. So we say X, it's unknown. And logic simulators then know how to propagate that through. Well, the reality is we do know it comes up as 0 or 1. And if we use that as the fingerprint and we apply that stimulus, then we now know exactly what that chip is. And we know it on the neighbor, we know it across the wafer, we know it on the other wafers. Lots of companies are putting it in. I mentioned NXP, I mentioned Xilinx. Lots of companies now are putting in. Probably the leader in this is a company called Intrinsic ID out of England. They were the first ones that came up with this technology. There's other ways to do PUFs than static RAMs. You can do it in a myriad of ways. This is the most popular, it's the most easiest because it's easy to build static RAMs in the processes we use for processing.
When you talked about, software and hardware and, putting different uses, if MD5 and SHA, everything in software for 20 years, we're just now getting it in hardware. I mean, that's ridiculous.
That's right.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
So the point is, every chip ought to have a PUF. Just like your vehicle has a VIN number, your cell phone has a EIN number, or whatever they use. Every chip ought to have a number, and there's a way to do it, and if you're not doing it, don't buy their chip. Again, the only way we change this is, no, I'm not buying your chip. So when you buy a laptop or something, ask about the processor. Is there a provenance on this? I don't know. Key management. Everything we do in security is about keys, right? We have public keys, we have private keys. Keys are everywhere. Well, a key to be done right needs what's called a true random number generator, right? You can't just have a random number generator because people will break it. One thing that's coming along is quantum computing. And a lot of the security guys are really worried about quantum computing because the 12 hours it takes to hack the password becomes 12 seconds, right? Key management, true random number generation is huge. One-time password, when anybody use two-factor authentication now, that's a one-time password. That's set to another secure device. It's a one-time password. You don't use it with insert, it's gone. It's a key storage, it's a generation, now you can secure that in volatile memory, non-volatile memory, there's lots of ways. There's all kinds of secret sauces for how they do this. But my point to the consumer is, are my keys secure? Do I have a true random number generator? Did they cheat and put a simple one in? Because it's hard. True random number generators are black magic. It's pretty cool.
Need your lava lamps like Cloudflare.
After you've got that, so now I know that there's a serial number and I can generate keys. Now the problem is, how do I boot my computer? How do I know that the software that came from Microsoft or somebody else is actually the software I'm supposed to be running?
Chain verification.
And so the secure boot process, you can't have a secure boot if you don't have good keys, because they're reliant on the keys. So see how everything is building up? I sometimes call this the security stack, but stack is not a good word to refer to the software. Security is supposed to be hardware.
Sandwich.
So, but the whole point is my boot process secure? And there's ways to do it. Tried and true, proven. It's all about money. They should be spending money to make sure when I boot my laptop, it's the software Apple wanted me to have. It's not somebody else who put some software in there.
And you shouldn't need to flash core boot to do it.
Exactly. Cryptography. Okay, cryptography is necessary. It's not sufficient. There's tons of stuff in cryptography. AES, you'll hear all this stuff. The point is, somebody's always going to break cryptography. It's just a matter of how much time and how much money you want to spend to do it. Quantum computing is going to break cryptography. We already know that. A company called SecureRF in Connecticut's already got quantum resistant authentication because they're using a crypto technique that they say is resistant to quantum contributors. I get in arguments, with it that nothing is always secure. It's just, it's going to be faster to break it. I can never say this word, attestation. It's the process of authenticating that I know I'm talking to you. When my internet thing comes up and you send me a request to connect, I ought to know that you're you and you're not a fake man in the middle. Authentication, that's where the two-factor authentication comes. But two-factor authentication is based on one-time passwords, which are based on public and private keys, which are based on a true random number generation, which are based on a serial number or a fingerprint. So see how you can't do this without, you can't just do one thing. Oh, now I'm secure. I have seen products that say, oh, we have authenticated products. And I look at it and I go, oh yeah, we store all the keys in a memory. So when we know that guy, we go get that.
You mean like Tesla?
I don't want to say the words out loud because I'm on film. And I don't want a black Tesla to fall out in front of my hotel. Exfiltration. This is stealing your code. Okay? Data exfiltration or data extrusion, some people call it. But you'll see at the bottom of this, they basically, it's sort of man-in-the-middle kind of attack, where somebody's getting into your flow and pulling stuff out and then reporting it back so the user at that terminal on the bottom left doesn't think anything's wrong. But all the software you're writing is being extracted from your system. There's very easy ways to stop that from happening. Anti-tampering. Okay, anti-tampering to me is a very interesting thing. Okay, because it can mean a lot of different things, but it means that anti-tampering food is something that's hermetically sealed and nobody could tamper with it. Well, in electronics, it's, again, I can inject some signal and watch what happens. I can listen to the electromagnetic, what's going on, but it's a way that I can extract and cause your thing to do something wrong. This is a synopsis core, and I keep saying it's easy to do. Well, it is. It is expensive. You got to write a check. But in this piece of IP that I'm buying, I'm getting on the bottom left, I'm getting true random number generation. Over on the right, I'm getting symmetric and asymmetric crypto. Up in the top left, I've got secure external memory to store my keys. On the right, I've got all kinds of hardware to accelerate all that encryption to decryption. And down the middle, in the white, you see, that's anti-tamper resistant pipeline. I'm not going to let somebody change the way I compute. You can buy all that, stick it in your design. Yeah, got to write a check. But here's an example. I have a customer who's building an MCU, sells for about $4. In quantity, $2.50, and they ship 100 million a year. Okay, these are everywhere, right? We came in, looked over, we worked with them, we put our Sentry processor in. The VP comes back to me and says, this is hysterical. We had a 10 million gate piece of silicon, and we added about 200,000 gates to it. So about 0.2% growth. They're now selling that $4 part for $9. A little bit extra area, what's the value? Well, the consumer is willing to pay. Who's your consumer? Well, it's car companies, it's medical equipment, it's the government, it's all the people that care about security. And yes, they're willing to pay an extra $5 so nobody
To not
will
die.
steal that. To not die. To not kill people, at least intentionally. So this is what I'm talking about, our product. And the last piece of this, and it's a hard thing to describe, so I describe it as a bodyguard. What we do is say you're using an ARM core, or you're using a MIPS core, or any processor you're using. Our processor is basically the bodyguard. And we're integrated within that. We're not hanging off a bus watching things and trying to predict with machine learning and pattern matching if something. This is, we know every instruction because we've watched the compiler. We know what your software is supposed to do. We know every valid instruction. And the stuff that the compiler throws away is very valuable data. We use that to know what's tainted data and what's not tainted data. So the minute your processor does something it's not supposed to, we stop you on the next cycle. Boom, shut you down. We send a message to the host processor saying, the reason we did this was, and it can be any list of things. Some might be somebody who was, it's a denial service. Somebody was over their quota for banging on our website. And so we want to alert you to them so you can shut their channel off, protect your, it could be anything. It could be that pacemaker. No, we'll never fire the defib if there's a pulse. Even if somebody wanted to do that, we won't let you. So that's, it's the Whitney Houston movie, The Bodyguard. We're just following your product around and never letting you do anything bad. And it's like life insurance. You hope you never need it. But when you do,
You really do.
you really, really need it. And so that's the kind of, so our little processor at 200,000 gates doubled the price that the vendor was able to sell their silicon.
So you basically train and whitelist and model for your validated workload.
And it's much more complicated than that. But at a high level, that's kind of what we do. And again, we're just going to follow this on a cycle-by-cycle basis, saying, what are you doing? That's legal, that's legal. So every instruction that executes, we're going, that's okay, that's okay. So all day long, for the history of this product, we never did anything to say that's okay. But the minute you said it's not, you're going to be happy we're there. And that's what this product does. And again, it's not for everybody. It increases battery life. We're adding a few 100,000 gates. That's reducing battery life by 1%. Making it a little bit bigger die and yield's going to go down. It's going to be a little bit more expensive. It's never going to let your product do something it's not supposed to.
Yeah, what type of tool chain do you have for developing the programs that your bodyguard processor uses?
Well, so we have what we call micro policies. And they're just collections of rules. Like a policy would be the pacemaker can never fire if you've got a pulse. It could be a traffic light. It's very simple. It could be you can never have green lights in two directions. You write a rule for that. So the software development for us is just rules. Okay, we're not that. But the host processor and that software that they're running isn't changed, other than to say we're using this coprocessor. We have to take the trace instructions, so we know how to trace back instructions. It gets a little complicated when you got 4 processors running and they're all running what's called out-of-order execution. It's mayhem, and that's why it took us 7 years to build
What do
it.
you do with the sock that has all of its buses hidden from the outside world?
Well, see, we're inside the processor. We don't care about the buses, right? We're right inside the processor.
Because you developed a level with the processor.
Yes, so we go to the people that you would buy the processor work. We work with them. In the case of NXP, they're using the M7 core from ARM. So we went to ARM. Once their customer said to ARM, we want this core guard, is the name of the product, inside the M7. It took us about a week to do that.
You're another IP core.
We're another IP core. But we don't sell it directly to you. We sell it through the processor guys. So ARM now has an M7 and an M7 core guard.
That's the way it should be. It forces you to do it.
So is there a slowdown on the main processor because?
Good question. So the question is there a slowdown? Well, no. If you're very performance oriented, we have a cache. So all the instructions are cached, and then we might be a cycle or two behind if the cache starts filling up. If you're running faster and we had a really hard thing to do, we might be 2 cycles. But performance is less than 0.5% kind of a hit. I mean, when you start up and the cache is building up, there's going to be a performance hit there. But once the cache is running, we see very, very minimal kind of performance.
And security is almost never really a performance issue. It's usually software, engineering, hardware.
We're running at the application speed, so if somebody's running 2 gigahertz, we've got to keep up with 2 gigahertz. And if we can't, that's when the cache starts falling behind. But we can run on the same processor they're running. Right, so inside, you see inside the core guard policies, and then the right is the policy enforcer. That's a processor. So if you're running an M7 at 2 gigahertz, I've probably got an M7 in there running at 2 gigahertz, so I don't slow you down. So I can stay in lockstep. That's the new word, lockstep, right? It's really a hardware interlock. So we want to keep up with you. But if you don't care about performance, right, then we'll probably run a downsized processor, reduce power, reduce battery life. It's not something you pull off the shelf and you put in. It's something that we work with the processor vendor to build an optimal configuration for what you're trying to do. We have a lot of low power people. Well, we don't even use that policy or enforcer. We actually use the host processor because there's plenty of bandwidth to do context switching. So he runs the instruction, we come in and check it, and they run back. That's what we do in pacemakers. just so we don't have an extra processor in there, so.
Is it not on proportional to the number of rules that you may take?
Well, again, yes, as the more rules you get, the more checking that has to go on, so yes. It comes with a set of basic policies for like the heap, for read-write memory, control flow, integrity. We actually had a customer, this was in the Department of Defense, it was a launch sequence, which is basically a giant state machine. It says, if we're gonna launch this thing, it's gotta go through all these states. And of course, if I was a hacker and I could make it transition out of a state into a wrong state, then I could make something bad happen. So we have a policy that is exactly defines the legal states from every state to every other one. And it's on every state transaction, we're saying, did it go from this state to that? Yep, okay. Did it go here to there? And hopefully it never, but if that's another example of a hardware failure, you could have transistors that fail, maybe in a satellite from radiation effects or something, and it transitioned not because somebody wanted to do it wrong, it just did it because the transistors were broke. It doesn't stop you.
Like for every state, you have to check this.
Every instruction, every cycle, there's something going on. We're doing it in lockstep. And we're never letting you do something wrong.
One of the objections that we've run into in development of embedded systems, and it came from, again, we've had technology to do this because people originally tried to do embedded systems using PLC techniques, right? We're going to watch everything, we're going to check everything, okay? One of the objections to PLC design is that it's an embedded device. If it breaks, they're going to take it back to Best Buy. We'd rather have it fail in the field and keep it running because the customer doesn't know enough. So there's a wide, the UL puts a sticker on this thing, and now all of a sudden,
Right. So when I say stop it, what we're doing is generating a non-maskable interrupt. That's the stop.
but then
Then
goes back to software.
Well, then what we're doing is providing you the error code. Why did we stop you? Okay, and it could be that you decide, just let that run. That's an annoyance, but we don't want to warranty that thing. So you basically have as many warning error codes, I call them, or security violations, but we provide that back to you. And that's in the operating system or the application software.
And customers are totally up with, we're going to write the extra software, and we think the extra software for error management is going to be secure.
So the software they're writing is just the micro policies. It's no application software, it's just the rules.
No, I mean the customer who has to do the error, has to do the fault recovery.
Default recovery, he has to, he can just stop. Or he can write some of that error recovery type of software. But it's not very complex. I mean, it could be 100, I got one customer that's 128 codes, right? It's a case statement, right? It's not the level of trust zone or an operating system or very complex
And if you're buying
application.
MSRP sensitive, you're probably not buying it anyway.
And at that point, something wrong has happened and everybody wants to know why, right? And so they're willing to take that little time out and decide, that's not so bad. Keep going, return. You know? But our job as a bodyguard is to say, look out. You know, well, you know, sky's falling, or there's an earthquake, or don't step on the dog do. I mean, you know, there's a whole, that's what we do as a bodyguard.
How do you program the policies?
We have what's called an open policy language, and it's a very terse language that's meant, and we provide that to you, and it's compiled. So our compiler fits under the application host compiler, so the user never sees it, right? If you want to generate a new rule, you can update it over the air, use the same over the air updates that everybody else uses. It's all secured. It's been vetted by the NSA. Remember, we're 5 years at DARPA and 2 years at Draper. The NSA has gone through this in large detail. We have a lot of Department of Defense kinds of applications. We have medical equipment. We have smart cities is another one that's really becoming problematic because if you're a terrorist and you turn all the lights green, you know, we're not really bright people when we're driving a lot of times, and it's just going to be passive. You know, it's just ridiculous.
In an industrial control system, you have the IP and the OT with demilitarized zone. So with every physical thing, you can instantiate the thing. You think that the IDM will be layers of nothing will be the zone of
Well, yeah, this is a philosophical argument more than anything, because, down at the technical level, it just all comes together and works. But, I mean, some people argue that, well, the value of the key is information, and that's privacy. And I'm like, well, but that information is being used to authenticate, and that's safety, right? It's kind of all, there's really not any nice delineation. It's not OT and IT, it's what, I'm like, it takes both. Network security kind of goes across both of those. So we don't get into the semantics of IT and OT too much. It's more, how do I write rules that keep the post processor from doing something it's not supposed to? In manufacturing systems in semiconductor, there's all kinds of very intricate controls on the depths of depositions and etching, and, right? And there's all kinds of rules that go into the machine that says if the machine had a failure, you might have a gas leak or something. You have this is where a lot of preventative maintenance is a big deal with the Internet of Things. We don't want to wait and then go fix things. We don't want to be told something was broke, let's go fix it. We want to get ahead of it and say, well, based on what I know, that thing's going to break, and it's likely to break in the next 60 days. So you might want to go service it now so you're not down. You might want a preventative maintenance instead of, or predictive maintenance instead of, fixing it as you go. It gets really intense. Probe cards are how we test chips on a wafer, right? And it can be thousands of probes, and they hit the device, they do their functional test, parametric test, and then they either put a dot on it and said that's bad, or they let it go, and that's how we sort wafers. Well, those probes, you can imagine, are very, very delicate things. And every time they hit, it's like when you take a wire hanger and you start wiggling it, they're going to break. And probe card repair is a huge expense in wafer testing.
Because your line's down.
And so if there are people that are putting pressure gauges on each pin, and they're each wireless, so they can get a response that this probe card, pin 12, appears to be breaking. Because you don't want to throw away good dye. And the only way you find out it's not working is because you're all of a sudden every die on the wafer is bad. Because that pin didn't work, right? Could be a data pin, could be a control pin. So knowing in advance is saving the semiconductor guys a tremendous amount of money. And they're the ones building those little sensors. It's kind of funny that they're building the stuff that's helping them build it. It's a very cool thing. But in general, what I'm trying to point to you is there's a ton of security solutions available to people that design processors, to people that design chips. It's there. They're not buying it and not putting it in because nobody's asking or nobody's using the power of their wallet, and the government isn't forcing it to happen, but it's coming. Okay, and that's the good news at the end I'm trying to say. And here's some examples. These are 4 companies. Rambo's down here in the bottom right, it has secure memory for the keys, it has secure boot, it has crypto accelerators, authentication. Boom, you buy that, you've got most of your security done. Up on the top left, a company in Boston, Intrinsics, we've got cryptography, we have key storage, we have DMA engine protection. Silex is a British company. My point is, there's 20 or 30 of these companies out there that are, and these are affordable. Because when you're making 100 million chips a year, the amortization of that cost is less than a penny, right? So I'm saying it's costing me a penny to make extra to make this $4 part, but I know it's secure, and I know the data is encrypted, and I know the keys are safely stored. The economics are there, but it only starts when the consumer starts paying for it. So, what are the summary is security, in my opinion, is the #1 limiting growth. The surveys of the producers, the buyers, and the general public, yeah, we don't know security, therefore we're not going to buy that device. All software is bugs. It's just a matter of life. It just does. And I challenge people. One guy came back to me after a meetup. He says, "Oh no, I have a program that has no bugs, and the NSA proved it." Well, it was 32 lines of code. I'm like, okay, I grant you that. Any commercial application of reasonable complexity has bugs. Threat models, 10 years from now, there should never be anything built that didn't have a threat model built into it as a specification. We should be designing for security like we design for tests, like we design for manufacturing, like we design for verification. It just should be part of the design process. There's plenty, oh look at that spelling here. Tons of security is available. You know, as I said, there's all these things. Based on your threat model, you'll know what you need. If somebody can't get access to your thing, it could be underground where nobody can touch it, you probably don't have an anti-tampering thing. Anti-tampering is only if I can touch it. I don't need that. Okay. If I'm not talking to anybody else, if I'm a bare metal thing doing one thing for one person, and I'm not ever going to connect to anybody else, I don't need authentication. I don't go away. I don't need to talk to you, so why do I need to authenticate you? But we're always going to have to boot a processor. You're always going to have a root trust. The root trust being the serial number, the key generation, the key storage. So, you know, everything's there. Cryptography's been around a long time. It's now just, do you like Ford or Chevy? It's that kind of feel. All cryptography for the most part is the same. So, to end that, I'll ask you to be smart, security-aware consumer. Like when I went into Home Depot and the guy's like, I'm a plumber. I'm like, I tell his boss, but he's selling me an insecure piece of electronics. So why do you have a plumber? Why don't you have somebody here who understands this? Because you're selling me a product that is insecure. And support politicians. It's both sides of the aisle. This is not a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian thing. They're finally coming together, like Underwriter Labs, to make it better for the consumer. So those are the two things I'll end on. My contact info is there. I live in Colorado. I'm in the Mountain Time Zone. Don't call me at 7 in the morning. I get those from the East Coast all the time. It's terrible. My email is pretty simple, Dan@Dover Micro. And thanks for your time.